Hello everyone, welcome to Your Questions on Astrology Edition 5. Don't forget to post below also if you have new questions for me to answer in future editions, and also don't forget to sub to my channel if you are new. Let's get going. These are quite amazing questions coming right into the heart of Vedic astrology. Question from Manasini Sridharan. An important transit such as Rahu, Ketu, Saturn, how soon after the date of the transit can we see effects? Well, thank you for the question, a very important one. How can we know when the maximum impact comes of any transit? There are two things you need to consider. The first one is, do you have a planet in that house in your chart? In your D1 chart, is there a natal planet there? Or in any Varga chart? Because the karmas of that planet will be set off by that transiting planet. And you will feel maximum impact within about 10 degrees orb, I have found. As soon as any planet gets into 10 degree orb, I don't make any distinction if it's the moon, Venus, sun, natal planet, Saturn, anything. 10 degree orb, things start to happen, I have seen. Now, that's personal to your chart, but here's something else that you may not know about. Regardless of any planets in a sign in your natal charts, it's very important to note that every planet has a portion of every sign where they are strongest. So all the signs divide into 30 degrees, as you know. So we can divide those into 3 sections of 10 degrees. And each planet has a certain strength in one of those sections. And that is when each planet is strongest to give you effect. So let's go through all the planets and see at which portion of any sign at all they will give you maximum impact. The first 10 degrees of any sign are where the Sun and Mars by transit will be at their absolute strongest. So Sun transit, Mars transit gives maximum impact in the first 10 degrees of any sign. In contrast, to see the effects of the benefic grahas, Venus and Jupiter in your life, you have to wait until they get between 10 and 20 degrees of any sign. That is where Venus and Jupiter have their maximum effect. The planets strongest at the end of any sign, the last 10 degrees, are the Moon and Saturn. So transiting Moon gives effect most strongly in the last 10 degree of any sign, and the same for Shani. A note about Saturn, however, everyone, Saturn is known for delaying effects, and by transit I've definitely seen, especially with the good things, Saturn will often bring you some very important long-lasting things in your life. Check the video on my channel, by the way, about the very special transit of Saturn from your moon that bring long-lasting important things. But these things often come at the very end of the sign, and even the last 1 or 2 degrees. I've seen Saturn just before he moves into a new sign give you a real blessing in life. He can do that. But in general, there it is. The last 10 degrees, the Moon and Saturn transiting give their impact. Finally, when it comes to Rahu, Ketu transit and Mercury transit, there is no portion of any sign where they're actually having maximum impact. All the time, they could impact you at any time with events and effect. Another question about transits, this time from Sweet Sadie. Do we consider the D9, Navamsa and Moon to be affected when we are considering transits? Thank you very much for that question, because absolutely we do, and it's something that I'd like to talk about a little bit. All transits are basically implicating your birth horoscope, your D1 chart. But the D1 chart has many different angles to it. For example, you can see D1 from ascendant, Lagna, or from the moon, Chandra Lagna, or from the sun, Surya Lagna. You can see all of these Lagnas and see transits to them from your birth chart. But the Varga charts are equally good to see transits from. Please don't forget this. Every single Varga chart, including D60, is actually impacted by transits in the sky right now. This might seem rather strange because If you think of it, that was not your birth chart. It's a mathematical calculation from your birth chart. But that's the subtlety of astrology. So just as you can see transits to your D1, D1 moon, D1 sun even, you can definitely see transit and make accurate predictions from the D9. And the D9 is one of the most important Varga charts to see transits from. Why is this? Because D9 Navamsa chart is showing you the highest potential in this life. If you like, it's the best you can be. People say be the best you can be, right? Be your highest self. Have you heard all of these things? Well, that is the D9 chart. That's why some astrologers in India don't even want to look at your birth chart. They will just say, show me Navamsa. Show me Navamsa chart and I can make every prediction possible. So, in this way, we can definitely see moon Navamsa transits to it and ascendant Navamsa transits exactly as you would judge them in the birth chart. But how do they impact you? Transits to your D9 ascendant, I have seen, are particularly relevant for spousal relationships. So, Saturn, for example, coming onto your D9 ascendant, a shift happens in your spousal relationship in some way. Some reality check, if you like. Some change happens. It doesn't mean divorce necessarily, but changes occur. Also, Saturn in the D9 7th house I've seen to be a very strong transit. But the D9 moon is incredibly important, because transits to the Navamsa moon are working exactly the same as they would in your birth chart, including Sade Sati. Now, this is something that I think people find hard to recognize. I was a bit in shock when I first learned this, but when I applied it, oh my goodness, my life made sense, people I know's life made sense, and I could even see in children's chart how that Saturn to the moon in the D9 was actually affecting huge changes in their life. So, by the way, Navamsa does not start at a certain age. You've got to put that to one side. At the very least, please do not accept that D9 is somehow vaguely there but not doing anything until a vague age like 30, 31 or something, or when you marry. D9 only happens when you marry. This is absolutely not the case. Many people do not marry or have many marriages. So is it switching on and off then? It's absolutely not. It cannot be so. At the moment you are born, you have a birth chart, and every divisional chart comes from that. So D9 is effective from the moment you draw breath. In summary then, you must see from your D9 transits most definitely, but particularly watch that D9 moon. I have definitely heard Pandit Sanjay Rath, as you know, I follow him closely, say many times that Sade Sati on the D9 moon, wow, you'll really know what Sade Sati is when it affects your D9 moon. And many other astrologers have said that that is the real Sade Sati, but it's lost in the modern astrology, maybe internet astrology. We just think of it as birth chart, but that's not the case. Check the link below. I've got a video on Sade Sati where I talk about D9 Sade Sati also. So let me know about your D9 experiences with transits below, particularly to your D9 moon. A question from Cyril Narayan. What makes a person anorexic? Thank you for your question. I take it that you mean how can we see anorexia nervosa in a birth chart? First of all, what is anorexia? Anorexia is a serious eating disorder whereby the individual completely starves themselves, and eventually 20% of people with this serious disorder will actually die. Bulimia is another serious eating disorder, but it's completely different. With bulimia, huge quantities of food are eaten almost compulsively and then compulsively eliminated either by fasting or purging. It's very clear to see, obviously, if somebody has anorexia because of their emancipated appearance, but it's not always clear if somebody has bulimia. You can't see it outwardly. There is quite a lot of evidence that they are actually genetic, and they are definitely linked to a distorted body image. An anorexic person does not see how thin they are, and the bulimic person also thinks they are vastly overweight when they are not. Definitely there is a mother influence also. Psychologists have definitely found, and some distortion of the mother relationship is actually there. So we need to look astrologically at the moon. Moon is mother and nourishment. We need to see first house, how you see yourself, body image. Second house, sustenance, food. And sixth house, how you deal with nourishment. Let's have a look at some charts. Let's start with the chart of Diana of Wales, who had bulimia. Now, Princess Diana talked often, actually, well, not so much often, but she definitely spoke about her bulimia publicly and explained the distress that had caused her. She's a quite secretive person, though, with Scorpio rising. Mars is her ruler, and also of the sixth house, which is very important for eating disorders. We'll come back to Mars. But first of all, let's look at the moon. The moon must be implicated, as I've just explained, in eating disorders and afflicted, and it surely is. The moon is with K2 in Aquarius in the fourth house. Now, the moon with K2 shows some lost connection with the mother. Her mother divorced her father early in life, and she lost that really close connection. And she has talked so often of how difficult that was for her. The Moon K2 conjunction is involved in a very dramatic Sarpadosh. Rahu and K2 in a very strong axis, 10th, 4th axis across the chart, Sarpadosh, with malefic Mars, her ruler, right together with Rahu. Mars Rahu, one of extremes, one of really anger actually, but what's happening to this anger? Mars is the sixth house lord. I've told you how important sixth house is for eating disorder. Sixth house shows that conflict, that ability to control eating on how you use nourishment in your life, how it affects your health. Well, that Mars is involved with Rahu. Rahu is the mouth with no body, the endless eating with no sustenance coming from it. That could clearly show bulimia, but it's not the only indication. By the way, Rahu Mars gives really strong anger issues, and bulimia is linked to depression. Depression is anger turned inwards, they often say. So strong evidence then of a deep psychological conflict at the back of Princess Diana's bulimia. But what about the important second house lord, which, as I've shown you, needs also to be involved? The second house lord is Jupiter, which normally indicates a great love of food and excess even. Jupiter can be linked to being overweight. Jupiter is, though, debilitated in Capricorn, retrograde in the third house. It's not a great placement for Jupiter, but in this case, conjunct to Shani. Shani Jupiter conjunction in Capricorn. Shani is lifting out Jupiter from this debilitated state, so helping her with her material factors. She was extremely wealthy, but here's the thing, Jupiter is nourishment here, her food. It's retrograde. She's taking in the food and she's eliminating it because Saturn is a super control factor, so that she's not being truly nourished by this huge amount of food. She is eliminating it. Another indication of bulimia in her chart. Next, a chart of Karen Carpenter, who died of anorexia when she was only 32. She was part of the Carpenters pop group, 1960s, a very famous singer. And you can see her here looking quite emancipated already. So let's take a look at her chart. Gemini is rising, but the ruler is in a difficult house in the 8th house of her chart with Venus and Jupiter. And it's actually afflicting the moon by opposition in the 2nd house of eating. So right away we see her self-image is difficult because ruling planet is in the 8th house. She has fears around her body, fears around how she looks in public. But the moon strength in the 2nd house of the chart is so important. I've shown you how the moon is essential to see. It must be afflicted, and the 2nd house lord as well. Now, 2nd house lord is moon in own house here, showing that food and eating is hugely psychologically important to her. Now you might think, well, she was anorexic, she was starving herself, how can food be important? But that's the psychology. It's well known that people who have anorexia are absolutely obsessed with food. They think about it 24/7. They like to be around food, but they just don't want to eat. But who is the dispositor of this moon in her chart? The dispositor in this case, because moon is in own sign, is Venus, because Taurus is the exaltation of the moon. Where is Venus? In the 8th house, again, opposing and afflicting the moon. Deep psychological conflict and trauma around food, which ultimately, with this 8th house, caused her death. But let's also look at the 6th house lord. Is it afflicted also? Indeed it is. The 6th house lord of nourishment is with Ketu, because 6th house shows how we deal with food for our health. With Ketu, it becomes dangerous for her because Ketu is exactly conjunct to Mars, a very dangerous combination. Once again, though, showing this Sarpa dosh, this Rahu Ketu axis, and Mars Ketu once again showing strong anger issues that were no doubt a part of this difficult disorder. Next, Victoria Beckham, ex-Spice Girl pop star, famous fashion designer now, anorexia and bulimia. She's admitted to both. And you can see by her emancipated public appearance that obviously she has elements of anorexia minimum. But because she has bulimia, obviously she eats enough food to sustain her, even though she is eliminating a lot of it. So a complex disorder here. Gemini is rising. Mars and Shani conjunct in this 1st house of body image. She wants to control it. Mars, extremely strong here, strong willpower. Saturn, rock hard discipline. No one can shake her from her absolutely extraordinary self-discipline which she inflicts on herself with these disorders. But do you notice that Mars is once again the 6th house lord? As I've shown you, 6th house lord has to be involved in affliction, which he is here with Shani. And Rahu in the 6th house, Rahu once again, the insatiable Rahu who will eat and then just not get nourishment from that eating. Although Rahu 6th house is a strong positive placement, she somehow doesn't allow this to destroy her life. At least she is existing. She has not died of anorexia. How is the moon serving Victoria Beckham? The moon is in Aquarius, conjunct to Jupiter and Venus. Once again, we see these benefics again close together. It's actually quite interesting. And an Aquarian moon ruled by Shani, which of course is here in the 1st house of body image with Mars connecting here. And of course, Jupiter is trining or having good aspect on the 1st house, sustaining her health. Jupiter and the moon, though, shows excess food intake. Moon is nourishment, but Venus is eliminating it. Venus is the 12th house lord. So secretively, she is eating the food, but she is eliminating the food, showing bulimia. Question from Pina24. Do the astrological system still impact a truly meditative person when he or she is completely attuned to the universe? Well, thank you very much indeed for that question. I presume what you're saying is that a truly meditative person, a person who is self-realized soul, in tune with the divine, will not be impacted in the same way by their astrology. Because if you are actually saying that they won't experience good stuff and bad stuff in their life, well, that's not the case. Even the Supreme himself, when he takes birth here, Shri Krishna, Shri Ram, for example, definitely we can see by their charts the unfolding of that time factor kala and the actual events in their life. Good events, bad events are truly shown in those charts. So the answer is short and sweet, that every living being is impacted by the astrology. Because what is astrology? It's simply a blueprint. It's a contract, if you like, between you and this universal energy according to your karmas, according to your purpose. So the divine has a divine purpose. We have a material purpose to fulfill. So everybody is impacted, but a truly meditative person would for sure maybe have become realized enough not to react in the same way. Don't forget, Krishna Bhagavad Gita talks about how the ideal way to live your life is to be neutral, to not be overjoyed with all the good, happy stuff, not to be despairing with the bad stuff, because everything will inevitably change. Everything is temporary. Therefore, if a truly meditative person, as you say, is in tune with the divine, with a higher purpose, they can deal with these time factor events in their life. But the karmas are still there. The karmas are still going to impact because everybody's chart is intricately related to everybody else's. It's very deep. But certainly, a person who is in tune with the divine, a self-realized person, would not react in the same way. They would not have the same internal experience to events in their life as the ordinary person. I hope that somewhat answered your question. Pix Unicorn has a question. Can you explain more on Vargottama ascendant as well as Vargottama planets? Diane F. has also asked quite a few times about Vargottama, so it's a popular topic. Vargottama planet or ascendant means a planet which is placed in the same sign in your D1 as in your D9. That's the basic principle. There is a way to apply it to other Vargo charts, and I want to remind you here that I'm going to be doing a whole video on this because Vargottama is so important. I'm going to be doing a whole video on this in my secret series, and I will actually go through every sign of the zodiac and into much more detail. So any Vargottama planet and ascendant shows harmony, if you like, because what you are inside is what you are outside. What opportunities you have in life, you have the chance to get the fruit of those opportunities as shown by the same position in the D9. The principle about Vargottama, everybody, is that Vargottama has high Shakti or power, extremely high power to manifest. Once again, the D1 is the opportunity, the karmas, and the D9 is the fruit of those karmas. So say you have a debilitated planet, which is Vargottama, what happens? Well, that debilitated planet gets more power, which could be difficult. So you need to definitely remedy that Vargottama planet, which is debilitated in the D1 and the D9. But there are definitely blessings associated with Vargottama planets. Let me give you some tips from Pandit Sanjay Rath. As you know, I do follow very, very closely his teachings. So, if you have Vargottama planet in cardinal signs, Aries, Libra, Capricorn, Cancer, it is a blessing of Brahma. Now, this is the creator of this whole universe. So Brahma giving you a blessing means that you are a creative individual also. And you can find creative solutions to your problems. If you have Vargottama planet and indeed ascendant, by the way, in fixed signs, Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, then you will have the blessing of Vishnu. Vishnu is the supreme and he has absolute control over the maintenance of the universal energy. So you have the great blessing of sustenance, of being able to endure in all circumstances. It's a very strong blessing. And if you have Vargottama in dual signs such as Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, Virgo, you have the blessing of Lord Shiva. This will give you great transformational power. You can transform situations in your life, and it's a great Shakti indeed. Let's go through the Vargottama planets and ascendant now briefly. If you have an ascendant Vargottama, it's a great blessing and it's actually quite rare because all the signs are in the same houses, D1, D9. This gives you the power to achieve. You have focus in life. When you set your mind to something, you get going with that and you do that according to the Shakti of the rising sign, as I have just explained, if it is cardinal, fixed, or mutable. You can have longevity also from this Vargottama ascendant, and health should be also good. Now the planets. If you have the Sun Vargottama, it's leadership qualities. Moon, your mind is strong. Mercury, you have good speech and learning. Venus, you have willpower, and you should also have good health. Jupiter is very good for wisdom, increasing to the highest level. Saturn for the ability to tolerate grief and difficulty in your life. Mars Vargottama gives physical strength. Rahu gives the ability to break down boundaries, overcome obstacles. And Ketu gives you intuition and should also give you mathematical skill. I hope they were useful summaries for everybody. By the way, it is said if you have 4 Vargottama planets, you should live like a king. It's an extremely good blessing. If you do have that, post below. I'll be interested to hear. Next question from Sudeep Neb, who says, can you please shed light on Dasha Chidra or Dasha Chidra time? Thank you very much, because Dasha Chidra is a little tricky to get right. There are some misunderstandings. What is Dasha Chidra? Dasha Chidra is the last bhukti of any Mahadasha, but is also known as Dasha Sati because it's a border, it's a crossover period. Now, it's certainly known in the Vedic astrology system that Dasha Chidra, the last bhukti or antradasha in any Mahadasha, is dangerous because it's unstable. One door is shutting in your life, another door is opening. But you're unstable because you're not quite sure what lies ahead. You are not in that vibration of the new Mahadasha Lord. I like to think of it actually as crossing a river. But the issue is, everyone, there are different sorts of rivers. It could be almost like a small stream, and you're just stepping on stones to get from one bank to the other bank safely. And you may slip, but it's not so serious. Or it could be like a big ravine facing you with a big chasm, and you're on this swing bridge between 2 cliffs and it's swaying and there's a storm raging and you're clinging on to the bridge. Get the idea? It could be pretty precarious. I have to tell you, extremes like that I've seen in Dasha Chidra. So how can you judge which of these metaphorical situations you will face? Will it be an easy crossing from the one dasha to the other, or will it be fraught with danger? You make a judgment by the placement of the Dasha Chidra Lord to the Mahadasha Lord. But let me first of all tell you something else of great importance. A bit of a secret, this one. Did you know that the Dasha Chidra Lord is actually known as Adi Mitra, the great friend? A great friend to who, you might say? Well, to the Mahadasha Lord. So the ruler of your last bhukti, that Lord, your last bhukti in any Mahadasha, is actually a bit like a security guard for the whole dasha. He's the end of the line. He's the 9th bhukti. He has the back, if you like, of the Mahadasha. And when he is strongly placed, it gives a strength to the whole Mahadasha itself. And you can actually see that in Dasha Chidra, when he is not well placed, it's going to be much more difficult. So let's make a judgment then by the placement of the Dasha Chidra Lord, the final bhukti Lord in any Mahadasha, and see how it will be. Let's start with the best placements of the Dasha Chidra Lord, or the final bhukti Lord. You take the Mahadasha Lord and place him in the 1st house. Think of that as house 1. So where has the final Dasha bhukti Lord gone? If he is in the same house as the Mahadasha Lord, in the 4th house from that Mahadasha Lord, or the 10th house, these are the most favorable 3 placements. They give strength. That security guard, if you like, is actually quite strong. So that Dasha Chidra Lord is able to support you over this difficult transit from one Mahadasha to another. Another two quite favourable placements are when the final bhukti lord is in the 5th house from the Mahadasha lord or the 9th house. These two placements of the final bhukti lord give you an inner courage which sees you through this time, and you are able to make plans even though Dasha Chidra is always uncertain. When the final bhukti lord of any dasha is placed in the 3rd house from the Mahadasha lord or the 11th house from the Mahadasha lord, it's a mixed impact depending on the planet. If it's a benefic planet in the 3rd and 11th house from the lord, you can expect a bit of a stalemate situation, but maybe that's good. It just calms things down, but it doesn't give you that extra strength. Dasha Chidra can still be choppy for you, but it's not as serious as some of the other positions. When you have a malefic planet in the 3rd or 11th house from the Mahadasha lord, like Mars, Saturn, that's more favourable because they get strength being in these 3rd, 11th placements, and they actually give you that extra push and support to get over Dasha Chidra. When your Dasha Chidra lord or final Antardasha lord is placed in the 2nd house from the Mahadasha lord, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th and the 12th, these are the most challenging placements. Your security guard is not in a good position to get you over that chasm. It's a very vulnerable time in your life. It's choppy. There are unexpected factors, particularly with the 8th house placement there. But the 2nd and 7th are also Marika danger placements. But don't be afraid of these. You can get through this in one piece most definitely, but you need help. You need remedy. The most important remedy, and again I'm going to refer to Pandit Sanjay Rath for this Dasha Chidra danger position of this final bhukti lord, 2nd house, 6th, 7th, 8th and 12th is mantra. You definitely need to take mantra here. Mantra could be anything that is soothing in your religious system, serious prayer, meditation. I definitely recommend Mrittyunjaya Maha Mantra and the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, which destroys all fear in our lives, and I will actually place link below. Question from Susie in Thesky. Can you tell which graha or house one should see for circle of friends? Thank you very much for the question. It's a very important one too. You see, the 11th house is the house of friendship networks, but it's not just the 11th house implicated when we're thinking about friends in your life, as I'm going to show you. The 11th house is about service to humanity. It's the Aquarian house in the natural zodiac. It's where we give to the greatest good in large groups of people. So it's how you connect in a really impersonal way, how you are friendly to larger groups of people and how they reciprocate with you. So 11th house is not always those intimate friends. 11th house shows how many people you connect to for the greater good, politics, social reform groups, groups about serving humanity in any way, larger circles. So yes, you said network circles and you definitely see them from the 11th house. But it's not the end of the story, because a really close friend with whom you share intimate connection, secrets and so much shared life experience is not so much shown by the 11th house. I have seen intimate close friends, very close buddies, etc. are actually shown more by the 7th house and 7th house lord. Because don't forget, 7th house has also a lot to do with enemies and frenemies. That intimate aspect of sharing self, either with a really close friend or your spouse, 7th house is spouse, has an element of tension and conflict within it. So, how many times have you had really close friends and broken up with them? And it's been almost heartbreaking and difficult, almost like a partner. Therefore, to see your very close buddies and close friendships, the 7th house lord must be judged and planets in the 7th house also. I've seen transits to the 7th house have a huge impact on your close friendships, not just spousal relationship. Your question was also about which planet to see for friendship. The answer is Mercury, Buddha. Mercury represents childhood. Mercury represents a pure innocence and joy and happiness of childhood. Don't forget, that is a time when we certainly have our purest, most unadulterated friendships. When friendship is, for most of us, if we are fortunate, pure joy. But looking at Mercury's position in the chart by house can tell you something about friendships. Let me show you. So when you're born with Mercury in the first house of your chart, shown here, you attract friends to you quite naturally. You're a chatty, open, interesting person, and friends are always attracted to you. But if there is affliction to Mercury, especially from the 7th house, opposite house, there can be splits in those friendships. But you're always making a new friend. Friends are ever changing in your life. If you have Mercury in the 2nd house of your chart, friendship is a value system to you. You're very involved with your friends. They become almost like a sustenance to you on a spiritual and mental level. You like to feel a real closeness, a special, almost secret bond with your friends. If you have 3rd house Mercury, siblings can obviously become lifelong close friends to you, and there is a great involvement with your sibling and cousin circle. If you have 4th house Mercury, you like friends in your home. You like to have friends near to you at all times. Neighbors can become your friends sometimes. 5th house Mercury, you're going to make good friends in education, and children later in life may become especially almost like friends to you, some of you. 6th house Mercury, conflicts with friends cannot be avoided. This is the house behind 7th house. But also, friendships are maintained because they are useful to you sometimes. And you are a very practical person. You give so much practical help to your friends and they to you. When Mercury is in the 7th house of your chart, it's quite important for friendships, because even in your spousal relationship, a friendship element is so important to you. And I've actually seen that Mercury 7th house can actually give friendship with a partner after even divorce, separation. Friendship can continue through life with an ex-partner if you have this Mercury. Mercury in the 8th house, just like Mercury 2nd house, a very strong bond to your friends. But 8th house Mercury can give serious splits as well. You're jealous, possessive, demanding of your friends if you are really honest about it. 9th house Mercury, you make friends in foreign lands with foreigners sometimes who are great friends to you, but you're not clingy to your friends. You are very open with them. You can have religious friends who are just spiritual partners, if you like, serving your higher needs, and you like to discuss philosophical systems with your friends, definitely. 10th house Mercury, you're going to make friends in your job, in your career, who can become lifelong friends to you. 11th house Mercury, so many friends. This is a house of network circles. You're always joining new circles, new networks. New friends are continually coming and going in your life. 12th house Mercury, there can be conflicts just like 6th house Mercury, splits with your friends. There can be secretive bonds, secretive friendships even. It can get really involved. But 12th house Mercury can often show that where there is a split, there is not an open discussion of it, and it is a bit of a mystery to you. If you enjoyed the video, up on your screen now, the playlist of other questions on astrology by my viewers. And don't forget, if you have a question, to post below this video. Goodbye for now, and God bless everyone.